Live from the apocalypse! This is State of the Game. I am Dan O, and I had cornbread with peanut butter on it for breakfast. That's right. That's how I live. My co-host, cohort, a rebel without a cause before he soaked his brain in ayahuasca. We're talking about Hey Diggy. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And it's another beautiful week in this rotting, degenerative world we have. So we were talking flow dynamics, the changing dynamics of flow, right? I feel like there's been usually when people are talking about flow, I feel like people are debating whether or not flow is like, is this one real? Is this hip hop? Right? Like, someone has a new flow and it's so offbeat. This isn't hip hop, right? And so the debate is usually like, should this be accepted or not? As if you have a choice, right? As if we all get to just vote them out. Like, the answer to that is pretty easily like, this is just a big family and you're not proud of every member in the family.
Right. Or you don't connect, like you don't see eye to eye with every member of the family. I think that's
yeah, it's your birthday, but your uncle's drunk over there. And that's what it is, right? That's what it is. Doesn't mean he's a bad person, whatever. So it's if you don't get to just kick everybody out who doesn't sound like. So anyway, but that's a dumb thing, right?
Yeah.
The argument's kind of dumb. So instead of doing that, I think the interesting thing to do would be talk about first my definition of flow within the conversation is pretty expansive, right? When we're talking about flow, we're talking about the speed at which this stuff is delivered, right? Rapping is delivered. We're talking about the tone of voice utilized, right? For the delivery, right? But we're also listening to these albums this week has convinced me that the writing is a part of the flow.
As in what they're saying, the content of the rap.
The way the words are collected and organized, right, is a part of how it's delivered, right? So when I'm talking about flow, I'm not just talking about the voice. I'm talking about how these things are coming out. And I think that's a big part of the Taylor Banks conversation. In terms of
in the way that when you say words, you mean as in the way that the ideas are formulated lyrically?
Well, think about like somebody like Rock Marciano, right? A lot of people have said, I remember Royce the 5'9" was complimenting Rock Marciano, and he said, I could never like use space like you do. I can never like use these pauses like you do. And those pauses aren't just vocal. They're a part of the writing. Right? So he writes in a way as to where he can stamp down, walk away, give it a moment, come back in, right? So, and like the line he uses on either end pause, that's kind of like an out of bounds play. That has to work, right? It's like an after timeout play. Got to get you going again. So I think that's. Is that a good example? Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, I'm following you.
Okay. So and so I think I think we should just, so in the general sense of how have you seen flow change over the course of your lifetime?
Flow, how have we? I think going by the criteria that you just presented, I think that we've seen for me, like I think the realization that I had listening to this is that flow is really representative of the it's like a zeitgeist. You can tell what the mood of the culture is by listening to the popular flows in the state of music. We'll go with hip hop now. So I think over the past couple of years, I would say, I mean, probably since the Weeknd. I think Weeknd really ushered it in, and he came in 2011. So I would say probably around 2013 on. So that would be the last 8 years. We've seen really like a more like, I think we've seen a lot of slow down flows, like off kilter flows, very, very representative of the current state of the millennial, I guess you would say.
Let me take a look. So you were saying 2013 with Weekend,
Yeah.
but I think was it House of Balloons ushered it in, right?
Yes, but it didn't really, like, the mixtape came out in
2011,
but it didn't really pop till 2013.
right?
When he, like, I think he repackaged it.
Yes, I was just gonna say, I think that once House of Balloons came out, that was the blueprint for people in the know, right? Like the fans didn't know about it, but the fellow artists were immediately like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
okay, all right," and you started to see a darker, more sinister.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess it could even go back to, I would say the three monumental figures in terms of flow are Weeknd. I would even go Kid Cudi in a lot of ways, and then Future. I think a lot, pretty much anything that we're hearing nowadays can be kind of tied back to those three in some form.
Well, yeah. So during my lifetime, it's
Mm-hmm.
been a heck of a thing, right? So the 90s, when I think of the 90s, people think of it as a golden age or whatever. I think that's a bit of a mischaracterization. It gives a little bit of a it's not wrong. It was an incredible era, but
Mm-hmm.
it kind of makes it seem like everything was neat and tidy.
Right? No,
I
agree.
In fact, it was a wildly experimental time. When, like, think of all the different flows from the 90s, right?
Oh,
We're talking about Snoop, Biggie,
yeah.
Method Man. How different are the flows in that you would like Rakim? Sorry. Yeah, but I mean, there's just Mr. Cheeks and the Lost Boys and Tupac and just all these different kinds of flows, right?
Right.
Onyx, Onyx and Snoop, just two different universes, right?
Right.
Had Bone Thugs and just so many different ways of doing this, right? And it was all just kind of sprouting out. Like people didn't even know enough to be offended, right? They were just like, "What is this?" Right?
Right.
They were learning as they went, because the 80s kind of when everybody starts to know about hip hop, right?
Right.
The end of the 80s, by 88, we all know, but in the 90s, that's when it starts growing in public. That's like teenage years, right?
Absolutely. Like I think of the 80s like the root, and then as you grow higher, you start getting other branches, and you start seeing the root grow out into other fields.
Yep. And so you don't have someone like Kid Cudi without Snoop, and he said it. Like
right.
So what? Then you go to the 2000s, and like you really start to get. I mean, I think because Organized Confusion and Goody Mob and Outkast, and you start like the South was hitting, right? Scarface, 8 Ball and MJ,
right?
Cash Money, right? Cash Money, No Limit, you know. So the South starts to really become not like an alternative, right? It used to be like the West Coast was hot, but it was kind of an alternative for a while. Like
Right.
you don't like this New York shit, you could go over here and you could, have some West
I
Coast
mean,
shit.
I would say the South became the base for experimentation and growth.
South became the center for most of it, right? You
Right.
had TI, you had Gucci, you had Waka, you had uh, just so many people, you know.
I think Outkast was way early 2000s. Like,
Yep. And then Outkast was early, and I think Outkast gave way to like Atlanta started being the focus,
yeah,
right?
yes, that's a
And
great
so
point.
Atlanta started being the focus, and then Paul Wall, Texas, and all that stuff, and still tipping, and like
hmm
started to get, obviously New Orleans with what we said, Cash Money, No Limit. Uh, the center of the spotlight started to go down, right,
Yeah.
and shift downward, and the South became kind of the center of people's understanding of, like, as you said, experimental flows, right? Um, and you have, like you said, Jeezy, Two Chains, Future,
hmm
all these pioneers really doing all this interesting shit. Um, but then I have to give your boy credit, right?
uh
Kanye,
Yeah. Okay. All
when
right.
he steps in, he really starts to, and 50 was dabbling with this, right?
hmm
He starts, Kanye creates a flow that is balanced. It is universal, right? Like universal flow of, like, this has elements of the South, right?
Yeah.
This has elements of East Coast, right? This has clear Midwest stuff, right? This is
Right.
common influence. So this is like, it starts to he kind of creates this, you know, and he's hearing everything. He's like, I'm taking a little bit from T-Pain, I'm taking a little bit from, from this
Yeah.
person, from Clips, and I'm starting to put it all together.
Absolutely, and that's where he, because he worked with so many different artists, the influences kind of seeped into him, like creating something that was kind of new, because he was open in a way that, like a Jay-Z wasn't. Like, Jay-Z had his skill and technical ability, but he wasn't really open to influences in the same way that a Kanye was.
I mean, I think he was. He was just a little less durable.
Yes, that's the right word. Or
Yeah, I
flexible,
mean,
I would
yeah,
say.
he was like, he wasn't going to be yelling out these crazy ad libs and stuff, and
Yeah.
he wasn't going to be doing all that. Like, he's Jay-Z believes in his composure, right? Like,
Yes.
believes in the composure in his flow. That, like, I'm not going to be doing this wild shit, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of the strength, the confidence. So for Kanye, he was much more open
Yes.
to doing wild stuff. So he created for a while this kind of, you know, pinpoint dart in the middle flow that hit exactly for everybody.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think that early on, he had a wit that was somewhat universally relatable. Uh, and he had like a sense of humor that was relatable. Like, he had like a common man sense of humor and wit that was relatable in a way that maybe Jay-Z wasn't necessarily. And I'm not focusing on Jay-Z, but I would say other rappers weren't relatable in the same type of way.
I mean, and so think about it like this: like, what is good about Donda? Think about, if you were going to say two general things that are good on Donda. Uh, I would say,
Yeah.
um, he's still very good at finding concepts that are interesting
hmm
for his songs, and he's still really good at big hooks. big
Yeah.
books. So he comes in with that skill set. Great production, top tier producer, uh, big hooks, great concepts, and some writers to help him out. You know,
Yes.
Time Fest, Consequence, right? And they're all Midwest cats. They're all like, when you're Midwest, you're in the middle of everything, right?
Right.
They're, it's different. So your influence is different. So yeah, I would say that's like, so he kind of, in a lot of ways, he set things in place so people didn't have to have the same tone of voice. So like when Aesop Rocky comes later, no one's freaking out. It's
Right.
not a big story anymore, right?
Right.
Oh, he's New York, but he likes Southern stuff. You're like, yeah, okay.
Right. The lines were blurred. He blurred the line. Kanye blurred the lines.
Nope. And Drake, I mean, I think Drake early on, Drake thought he was blurring the lines way more than he was. Like he was rapping on Texas beats, but he didn't sound like he was from Texas.
No.
He wasn't like, the flow wasn't crazy game changing to me early on, right? It was,
I would say like, and there's a different, because you can copy the mechanical flow, but I think you also, if you're going to replicate, you have to have the tone as well. You have to have the spirit, or the, what do they call it, je ne sais quoi,
right.
of what you're trying to emulate. And
Yep.
I don't think that necessarily Drake was able to do that. Like he could get on a beat, like I think of Underground Kings, with did he was Bun B wasn't on Underground Kings, or one of the songs. He could get on that beat and ride it technically.
Yeah.
But the spirit of the region that he's trying to emulate was not necessarily there.
Later on, he kind of got good at affecting like a European flow, right? And he's like, Afro flow, and he tried to do all that stuff. Early on, is what I'm talking. Early on, Drake, I don't think he came in the game changing people's flows.
No.
Other people did. Big Sean for a time, like, affected flows. Migos affected flows. There's been people blipping along the way. But I think where flows are, where do you think flows are now, in terms of where we are?
Yeah, and what I say is, I think that it's a reflection of the zeitgeist. So if we look at where I would say maybe like, what is the mind state of an average 20, maybe 22, 23-year-old? And I think what we have right now, there's a lot of anxiousness, a lot of darkness.
Yep.
And a lot of the need to individualism, the need to express yourself outside of your family and outside of what society is expecting from you. So I think we're seeing that in a lot of the flows that are popular in today's times.
I think that the mechanics of it used to be, the big label looks for like the kind of right cadence that everybody wants.
Mm-hmm.
You only get people like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
People like customized stuff now. Like you can see it with like TV ratings, right? Back in the day, shows used to get 10 million viewers, 20 million viewers. Now a show gets 1.5 million viewers and it's getting awards and people love it.
Right. I mean, people are using culture and media as part of their identity, their personal identity. So who you listen to, well, I mean, it's not like a modern concept. I'm sure your generation and older generations had it as well. But who you listen to, what you watch, is almost defines who you are as a person, as part of your personal identity.
Right. Yeah, no, it was even more so entrenched in that stuff, especially since we didn't really have the kind of flow of information, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we were just like Wu-Tang Clan, that's it. Can't tell me nothing. You know, that's why you see like people so dedicated to it
Yeah.
their whole lives, because there was just nothing like it, right?
Right.
It was yeah. So, and that's the excitement of like someone with a new and interesting flow, right? Like, oh, someone we should talk about with that? Nicki Minaj, dude.
Mm.
Nicki easily had a more game-changing flow than Drake. Easily.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Easily.
Nicki is the blueprint for a lot of the female rappers out now, and a lot of the male rappers
Oh
as
yeah.
well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, she. I mean, the conversation around Monster
Mm-hmm.
was
Yep.
hers, right? It was hers. Yeah. We saw. We were at like a national poetry reading thing, and we saw some like a female poet do Nicki Minaj's Monster Verse,
Oh,
and everybody went nuts. It was like doing it along with her, and it was huge. It was huge.
I mean, we had never seen. I don't think we had a moment like that in hip hop. You know, someone like it was just out of. It was just such an extraordinary verse, an extraordinary moment, completely unexpected, and it just really caught a lot of people off
Yeah.
guard.
And I want to say, I don't think it had to do with her being a woman in hip hop, right? I don't want to get into
No,
think pieces about that. It had
no.
her to do with her dipping into a British accent, dipping out of the British accent,
Mm-hmm.
slaying the rest of the verse. And we were like, what just happened?
Yeah, I mean, it was like, to go back. So the criteria you had for flow were speed, tone,
Yep.
words, and space. And her verse was a masterclass in all four of those.
Yeah.
You know, she had different speeds, different tones, like you said, different accents. You know, she really played with the space, and that, I mean, kudos to Kanye and the producers that worked on it, that worked with her to kind of help mold the beat to her verse as well. So
Do you think, like, in terms of flow, this is just coming to me now, and it may be a hot take,
okay.
but Nicki Minaj is like the true heir to Eminem's flow?
I would say she's the evolution of Eminem's flow. I think
So like people would think like maybe Tyler is or somebody, but like,
no.
but to me, no, like, well, Tyler is clearly influenced by Eminem. Um, and Odd Future clearly was. Like Nicki kind of, you as you're saying, the evolution. Like she kind
It,
of figured out how to improve upon it.
yeah, what I would say about Tyler is I think tonal wise they were influenced, you know, with he gave them the blueprint for, you know, shock content in a way.
Right.
But I think in terms of tone and then in terms of skill as well, like technical ability, I think Nicki is the evolution, would be the evolution of Eminem's flow.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And shout out to obviously Little Wayne,
Mhm.
who, you know, uh, just a pure agent of chaos.
Yeah.
Pure agent of chaos. It was like the kid laughing at everyone for doing their homework and then getting a 98 on the test.
Yeah.
He's just that dude for life, you know?
And Wayne, to me, like, I think Wayne was more unstructured, and like the difference between Wayne and Nicki.
Yeah.
Obviously, Wayne influenced Nicki as well, but Wayne was more unstructured in a way that Nicki is not.
Right. Right. No, Wayne was like pure unstructured in the sense that like, you know, where it was like you see those and one basketball players just like fucking with like NBA people because they can't play like that.
Right.
He's like the and one NBA guy who can do both. Like
Yes.
he's totally comfortable just going nuts on that, and but it could make hits
Hmm.
just as a shirtless madman, and it was special, you know. Uh, you know what was the song that made me think about that?
Okay.
So American Gangster, I love American Gangster.
Yes.
I was a little mad that Hello Brooklyn had Wayne on. A little mad. I was like, this is about Brooklyn. This dude is not from Brooklyn. Why is he
Right.
on here? Hello Brooklyn. I fucking love that song. I love Wayne on that song.
I,
Over time, it just got me. I was just like yelling it like he was. I was just like,
I mean, he added that energy, that zany, off-kilter energy to the song, injected it with it. And I think at the time, the discussions were, there was that tension between the two.
Sure.
For like, because Lil Wayne was coming and Jay-Z was like, no, you're not there. So there's that tension. So obviously American Gangster kind of played up on the tension of it. But I think that Hello Brooklyn kind of, looking back, I think we'll look at it as kind of like a landmark album. You could see the fissures, I think that's a word, and where hip hop was going.
Right.
With that track, with Jay-Z, very, like you said, very composed. He's always going to hold his composure. And then Wayne had this zany, kinetic energy.
Yeah, I mean, and you would see it flip flop. Is I think this is where the think piece is, right? Is the zany off the wall chaos flow becomes the pop flow.
Yeah.
Right. The composed mastermind flow becomes underground.
That's a very good way to put it. Yeah.
So that's the interesting part of it to me. But yeah, I think that's a good kind of walkthrough of these important figures in flow. Mm-hmm. We did we're half hour and have not talked about what albums we're talking about.
Just given the context, it's good to create.
That is my way. Yeah, right. So we reviewed ToBy L'Esprit and Teller Banks, The Part and Parcel.
Mm-hmm.
With Part and Parcel, produced by Ed Glorious.
Ed Glorious, yeah.
I do not know who produced L'Esprit. I wish I did. Details are vague. Maybe it's him. Usually when details are vague, it's him. Yeah. But so I picked these two because these kind of to me represent the different possibilities of flow right now in 2021, right? Interesting kind of new ways of doing it. What was your reaction to these albums?
I mean, I liked them both, actually. I liked them both for different reasons. I thought they were both sincere, and as I said, I thought that they both kind of represented. They were good. They were both representation of the times that we're in, and the zeitgeist and mood of the average, not maybe not even 20, of the average person, I would say. They tapped into that film, that mood.
No, it's yeah. I love them both. Which one do you want to start with? Which one would you like to?
L'Esprit by ToBy.
This one really, it just took me over. Mm-hmm. It was Gary Suarez recommendation. Shout out to Cabbages newsletter. Everybody should have that. Sign up for that. But boy, the extreme differences uh, from song to song,
Hmm.
really interesting.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, just like the way I was thinking of the switch from song 4 to song 5,
Too fucking cocky to want me to do.
because Too Fucking Cocky is a big, savage, brilliant anthem.
Yeah.
Uh, it's huge, right? Most underground artists can't manage a song this big. It feels stadium sized. Uh, you can just rewind it and lose it again and again. But Want Me to Do is like the sweetness of his voice, the horns, juxtaposed against like Too Fucking Cocky. It's just superb.
Yeah.
It's great.
I mean, the contrast, the good artists know how to play with contrast in a way that makes sense, not just contrast in terms of chaos, as in we don't know. Contrast is in deliberately putting two pieces side by side that kind of bring out the best in each piece,
Yeah.
best qualities of each piece, I could say. And I think, like you said, he did that with Too Fucking Cocky, with the transition to Want Me to Do.
Yeah. No, and I guess what I was struck by is because he can sing and because he can rap and because he can yell,
Mm-hmm.
all these varieties that he can switch into. You know what I mean?
Right.
All these speeds, all these textures, and he uses them to express how he's feeling, right?
Yeah.
I felt like there was a time early in flow. Maybe this was I'm gonna pinpoint it.
Okay.
The Rich Gang mixtape, buddy.
Rich Gang. Okay.
Rich Gang The Tour, Volume 1. It was Young Thug and Rich Homie Quan, 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys, that is a flow experience. Those two were just doing all kinds of different wild flows against each other. And people were loving it. People were falling in love with it. But my problem at the time was these flows aren't really in service of any ideas, right? Just happening.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's cool and I like it, but I'm not going to get too crazy about it because there's other albums people put their heart into, right?
Right. Right.
That was my thing. I feel like L'Esprit is the evolution of that, right? It is, I still get to do the voices, do the effects on my voice, change whether I'm singing or yelling or screaming or whatever, but it's all going to mean something. It's all going to be delivered specifically to aid my point.
Yeah, I think if you want to have like a versatility in flows and be able to, cover a lot of ground musically, you have to have created a strong personality that's able to, be carried in each different flow that you use or different musical content. And I think ToBy does a great job doing that, creating a personality, creating a voice or a tone that can be carried over to each track, even though the tracks sound different, because we know what his personality consists of. It's actually kind of consistent. When he goes from Too Fucking Cocky to Want Me to Do.
Yep.
It's the same voice, same personality, just over like a different musical aesthetic.
And he's still very lyrical. Like, but
Mm-hmm.
the funny thing was, I started to notice that I think, when did I write that down? That like he has, yeah, Sinners. I said Every song seems to have multiple tempos, singing and rapping. This starts out punchy and dancey and slows down. Ooh, Ghost. My note for Ghost is an important point, right? Maybe the best mix of singing and rapping on here. This is the new school. It's a big reason why hip hop has survived. It can be alt rock, it can be R&B without losing its identity.
Yes, that versatility. Hip hop is, to go back to my last point, it's really based on personalities. To be a superstar hip hop artist, it's not just enough to have like a great song. Like in pop, you look at a Katy Perry or something. People, she has a team of writers, sometimes herself, that write good pop songs. So when we hear like, oh, that's a great, like, I think TGIF.
Yep.
She's got a great producer, she's got songwriters. So when we hear the song, it's like a great song. It doesn't necessarily work that way in hip hop and rap.
Right. No.
I was gonna say, in order to be a superstar, you've got to really have like an established personality that connects and resonates with people.
And I would say, so it's a personal vision, right? And I think the flow enacts your personal vision.
Yes.
Right? You have to, it's almost like the thing about you dress for how you want to be, right? How you want people to see
the position you want, right?
Right. So if you're grungy, that's what you're going for, right? If you're, dapper, that's what you want people to see. And so your flow presents that. It presents your personal vision. Yeah, so that's the important thing here, and I think it's not that the versatility in terms of switching into things. It's hip hop kind of has space for other forms to inhabit within it, right? If you want to switch into reggae, that's cool. Hip hop's fine with that, right?
Right.
You want to switch into rock, hip hop's fine with that. Like whatever you want to do.
Right.
And that is very present in here. It's it was Are We Riding? You remember Are We Riding? Number 9.
Are we riding? Yes, right after Ghost.
Yes, it's very much in that too fucking cocky lane. It's fast rapping. I put ratchet energy, right? Like popping wheelies in the parking lot.
And that's kind of like the opposite, like from Too Fucking Cocky to Want Me to Do. That's going from up tempo to low tempo, and then Ghost to Are We Riding is like the exact opposite, like ramping it right back up.
Yep. And I wrote, he's popping wheelies in the parking lot, but it struck me. I wrote, the best lyrics on this album are probably sung, not rapped, though.
Yeah.
So maybe my favorite lyrical moment on here is Remind Me. Number 6.
Yes, that was my standout track as well.
Lyricism here is in the details, right? I'm gonna take you where you need to go. No, I'm overspent. Running fingers through your hair. Your presence is a compliment because I'm way too gone right now. Watch that black dress hit the ground. Maybe don't you make a sound. The cadence has to be precise because it's utterly poetic. But then near the end, it speeds up and becomes a full-on like kids bop tune near the end. So, but his lyrics when the singing they're beautiful. Day by day, the room inside my head has no space for you. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. The poetry is in the singing.
I agree. And I think, to kind of tie back to your point, like hip hop has so many other, you know, strains of musical DNA in it that it's remarkable. Uh, and even and what I really liked about Le Esprit was that, as you said, there were so many different genres that I heard. I heard, that alternative rock. I heard hip hop. I heard a lot of R&B as well. And because it's hip hop, it all makes sense. It all goes. And he did a great job of, you know, what I would say, being versatile, like being able, looking like he had, as you said, he had a thought that he wanted to express, and he was able to find the best form to express that thought.
Right, right. Yeah, no, he used like all these things that we call tricks, right? The
Mm-hmm.
ability to sing, the ability to do this kind of loud, fast, drivey thing. All these tricks he used to his advantage.
Yes.
He used them to further his point. He didn't use them to use, and so
Right.
intentionality and a sequencing that's really beautiful in this album, but it feels very personal,
Yeah.
right?
Right. And I would say the master craftsmen, they have a whole set. Everyone has like tools. The master craftsmen have a large set of tools, and they know what tools to use at the right time to get the job done.
Totally.
And I think that, I'm not saying that ToBy is like a master craftsman, but he's got a set of tools, and he knows which tools to use in which situations to get the job done efficiently.
Yeah, no, my notes for 40 Miles, the last song,
Mm-hmm.
only 2 songs on here meet the 4-minute mark. These don't need really, they don't really feel like snippets.
No.
ToBy can give you full moments in short pockets because of the various talents that he has. It makes the songs move. There's no static moments.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's very,
Similar Road is only 2 minutes long, but it's so personal. It's so interesting. It just feels done.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of movement, but the whole album, there's a lot of movement. There's not a lot of lingering. It goes from one song to the next. It just flows all the way until the end of the album.
Yeah, no, it feels very unified, and that's the thing is with both of these albums, right? They feel very unified and they feel very sequenced and well done. You also, I think, at the end, when you get to the end of both of these albums, you start to wonder if this is actually underground or not, right? It's this doesn't seem like it needs to be an underground album. Some of these songs could be on the radio.
Yes.
A pop thing, it wouldn't be a stretch, right?
I mean, you can hear the influences from the popular music of the time. I would say for both of these albums, you can hear the influences.
Yeah, I'm just saying that to say, like, if either of these two blew up, right, Teller or ToBy, became pop, people became like really important. And if somebody was like, "Oh man, he sold out," I'd be like, "Shut up!" Like,
right.
This is where it's obvious. There's more capabilities here than can be contained within this sphere, right?
It's interesting. And that brings up a point. What do you think separates, a mainstream artist from an underground artist? Because stylistically, as you said, there's really no difference between
Well, there's. I mean, to me, there's a. I've argued with people about this before. Some people think underground. The difference between underground and pop is strictly sales, right?
Hmm.
I disagree. I think underground is a state of mind.
A state of mind.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Now, how would you? This is interesting. Now, how would you define the underground state of mind?
I mean, it's a lot of me and Alaska talked about this when we talked the first time. A lot of underground people actively hate pop people, like actively hate the pop atmosphere and hate the pop rap atmosphere.
Hmm.
Make opposite, the opposite.
So they hate the atmosphere, but they don't hate the artist. Is
I mean,
that
some of them do, some of them don't. I don't think that
right?
matters. I would say because they're never going to know them, right? These are underground people versus pop people.
Right.
You can meet them, but like they hate. So as Alaska's example, right?
Right.
Alaska was on Def Jux with LP, with Aesop Rock, Labor Days, all that, right? Get them
Hmm.
blocked. They hated the shiny suit shit,
Right.
right? Diddy and all those dudes. He says, looking back on it, that was some interesting music, and there was some interesting stuff in it.
Right. And that kind of ties to the question I was asking. So did they hate the atmosphere, but yet, the artists, they were able to, whether consciously or subconsciously, take something from the specific artist, like be influenced by the specific artist?
I mean, they hated the hype and
Hmm.
they hated the hype. They hated the oversaturation. They hated the cutesiness of a lot of it,
Right.
right? And so they formed Def Jux to be jagged and to be like the opposite of pop, right?
Mm.
Um, and to rub that in your face. That's what underground should kind of do, right?
Mm.
Should give a wedgie to the establishment.
Right. Because I think of like the metaphor I was thinking in my head, like you could think of like an NBA player, like we could say like a James Harden, where, a lot of James Harden's, well, in the past, his points were predicated on getting to the free throw line.
Yep.
So that aesthetically, that's not pleasing to watch. But as a player, there are a lot of things that you can learn offensively by watching him play.
Right.
So yes, you don't like the environment that he's in that allows him to, exploit, this loophole in the rules, but yet you still have an appreciation for the actual player.
Right. Yeah. I think that might have been present. I would say, I think that, and that's got to be different per each, person.
Mm-hmm.
I would say
Right.
the unifying character is that if you're an underground artist, you actively don't want to make easily consumable stuff, right?
Okay.
Um,
Good. All right. That's a very good distinction.
you remember when we did I Self Divine, right?
Right.
I Self Divine has no designs on taking over the world, never did, right? Been an underground artist his whole life, talking about really important issues that he cares about. That's fine.
Right.
Never going to position for the main deal and not worried about it. And so these two are not like that, is my point, right? ToBy seems like ToBy could fit in the pop sphere.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. If he got the right opportunity, I wouldn't be surprised if you heard him on the radio next year.
Yep. No, it's just that. Yeah, this feels like an undiscovered kind of gem of character, that might rise up. So let's talk part in the parcel.
Yeah.
Ed Glorious, man, what a year for Ed Glorious. How do you feel about the production on the part in the parcel?
Oh, phenomenal phenomenal production. Phenomenal production. I think in terms of projects that I've heard this year, I think this is from front to back, top to bottom. This was probably some of the most consistently excellent production on a project that I've heard.
And man, because you remember Sleep Glorious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ed Glorious produced that. It's been awesome to watch him put his signature sound out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Ed Glorious is doing the kind of soul boom bap a lot of people are doing. But there's something completely unique about his take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't put my finger on what it is, but there's something different about it.
Maybe it's just as the sounds are just more deeply rooted. What was I thinking about? Was it Amos? Maybe the beat for Amos.
Let's see.
It was like the don 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 don. It was like, man, this is a deeply soulful beat.
That was the word I would use. There's a lot of soul to the production.
Yeah. That's why he immediately gets Teller to talk about, violent things he's done. And he gets just really unique things out of Teller Banks because of how soulful this music is.
Right. It strikes a vein. Like it strikes a vein in the rapper. You could tell that hearing these tracks really struck something for Teller and allowed him to be very vulnerable.
Right. When I talked to Sleep Sinatra about Ed Glorious's beats for Sleep Gloriously, I said, man, these soul samples sound like they're crying.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no way you could have not gotten personal on these.
Yeah. And I think with Teller, I think the chemistry that he has with Ed Glorious is something that I did factor into, the analysis of his flow, because I think the flow and the production in this regards is a package deal.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
They were tailor-made, for each other in a way that like Le Esprit wasn't like the production on that wasn't in the same way that it was for this project.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, whoever produced Le Esprit, it was great. It was well produced, but there's a difference. So we talked about personal vision, right? Mm-hmm. Personal vision with enacting your flow. Producers have personal vision too.
Yeah.
And when you see a producer bring their personal vision with a rapper who has a really distinct personal vision, and you see them create this kind of relationship, this kind of new mission between the two of them.
The chemistry.
It's a real beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah. And I think what helped Teller Banks was the contrast, because as you said, he's got some very gritty, very raw lyrics that you wouldn't necessarily expect to hear over a production that's so soulful, so like ornate, I guess you could say, very pretty.
Yeah.
And so anytime you get very pretty, polished production over gritty, raw lyrics, that's usually a winning and compelling combination.
And if you want an understanding of why Taylor is so fascinating, I think the first song is a great way to start Psalms. He says, I drop old Wayne, they treat me like new Wayne. New Wayne. I, I wrote, it's not just his voice. Teller has a way of making a phrase or concept, flipping it a bunch of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
The old versus new in his song, a great way to go from Little Wayne to Bruce Wayne. He keeps rearranging the concept and letting it comment on his point.
Yeah, I mean, it ties into what you were saying regarding the words aspect of the flow and organization of ideas and concepts. And I think, Wayne was very instrumental that, I mean, his run in the early, like from, maybe 2004 or 5 to 2007, 8, really kind of laid the groundwork in a lot of ways for these rappers in terms of how they present ideas. And I think, I could definitely hear the Little Wayne influence in him in terms of, how he presented ideas.
Right. Wayne as the agent of chaos is a big player in this, right?
Yeah.
But I think I told Teller Banks when I interviewed him last, because this is the second project they've put out, Ed and Teller.
Mm-hmm.
The Grotesque and the Beautiful was like, what, maybe number 17 on my list last year. It was hot.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it. And it's still, I think it's still a better album than this one. But I love both.
Right.
I told Teller, I'm like, you're the John Morant of this rap shit.
In what way?
John Morant is a weird player, dude. He's a weird player to watch, but he's freaking amazing. Like, the thing about Ja is that I don't know that watching him is unlike watching anybody else play.
I agree.
The way he's weird hitches and switches in his movement, right?
Yes.
Where you can go to the basket or pass to other people. He's like low key one of the best players, but nobody knows it because he's in Memphis.
Yeah, and I think he reminds me, he's got the athleticism of a Westbrook, but whereas we recognize Westbrook and we appreciate and we love him because of the recklessness of his style.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he'll see 2 7-footers in the paint and he'll still go in because that's just Russ doing Russ.
Right.
Ja has that athleticism that Russ has, but he doesn't have necessarily that unabashed recklessness that Russ has.
He has like the athleticism that Westbrook brought in, a little bit of it, but he has like the composure of like SGA,
Yes.
So
That's a great way to, composure is a great way to put it.
So he's
That's
like
the right
really, yeah. So I just think Teller is, sure, there's chaos in his flow, but it's masterful. It's beautiful,
Yeah.
So I just think it's yeah.
And with players like that, like with Ja and Russell, to kind of tie it back, is also dependent on the coaching. Like, if you have a player like that who has that talent, you have to have a good coach that can really channel and focus that energy in terms of the team concept. And I think that Ed Glorious is a great coach for Tyler Banks.
I just think, I think the thing is, because Teller's brain is so different, his voice is so different. Everything about it is so different. He can sing, he can do big hooks, he can just rap his ass off. someone like that needs the beat to focus them in a direction, right?
Mhm.
And Ed is not ping ponging around. Ed knows exactly what Ed does, right?
Right.
And to the point where you can see him, you know, Ed is a sculptor, right? Like Ed is getting better at this sound every project.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so he's leveling up by this much each time.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think Ed, like to go back to the basketball metaphor, like the good coaches are able to create the right context for that talent that allows it to shine.
Yep.
So whether that be scheme, okay, like if you have John Morant on your team, you have to create a scheme around him that's going to highlight that talent and allow that talent to be fully utilized.
Yep. Yep.
Whether that's the schemes in terms of plays you call, or even in terms of the players that you surround him with.
Mm.
I think Ed Glorious he does a great job creating the landscape or the musical soundscapes around Teller that allows his talents to really shine, to allow his flow, his lyrics, and his words to really shine.
Do you have any favorite songs, favorite runs from the Part and Parcel?
So I wrote down 4 that really caught my attention. So wait, let me get the second part of the type. Okay, so Trappers and Bandits, Prodigal Son, Moses, and then Denver Thuggets. Denver Thuggets was probably my favorite.
Yeah, Denver Thuggets, the horns are amazing.
Yeah.
The horns definitely changed his sing-song tone.
Yep.
The hook is great. Teller used the warmth and punch of the horns to render his threats even more vividly.
Yeah.
So he saw how big this was going, and he turned it, turned the context into, you don't want to fuck with me.
Yeah, I think it's good because I think when you have an unlimited amount of talent and your mind can just go in anywhere, I think it's good when you have a producer that's able to put confines on it, confines on which direction he wants you to go in. And that's not like to restrict your talent, but to kind of help you, as you said, focus.
Yep.
So if you have the confines, like if we have a yard and there's a fence around the yard, like I don't have to worry about like going out of the fence. I can just figure out how to play in that fence. And that's there's a peace of mind in that.
Right. Yeah. I would say the thing I want to make sure, because when you have a bananas flow that's really one of a kind, it's really a unique experience.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the effort and the writing, the intelligence gets lost, right?
Mm-hmm.
We end up just talking about Serena Williams' serve and not her intelligence as a player.
Right. Her
So
mind, absolutely.
talk about like phases. The first spoken line in phases is, "I got a bullet where my heart was."
Mm.
I mean, he's just really good at everything. Grabs your attention. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to Trappers and Bandits, right? It's just an evil beat from Ed Glorious, right?
Right.
I said this beat plays as the bad guy kidnaps the good guy's family. Teller is so slick. He says, "If it's war, I'm in trenches. I don't ride me no fences. You won't find me on benches in the game when it's inches."
Mm.
He also says, "Black fit like a venom."
Mm,
On. His brain moves very fast. He's threatening, but he's very funny at
yes.
odd times. Everything about this delivery keeps you on your toes, and the writing seems to follow the voice.
Now, what do you mean by that? The writing seems to follow the voice.
Like it seems like it is. It doesn't feel like he's affecting a flow for what the words are trying to get. It feels like the beat finds his voice, and he finds like a flow, and his brain kind of does whatever it wants from there.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I would agree.
That's how it feels, man. That's how it feels. Listen to it. It's a unique experience. I think listening to Teller is a very unique experience.
Yeah.
Um, Prodigal Son is amazing. Great beat. I feel like this is a very left field beat for Ed, but I love it. He's a very adventurous. The song sounds like
Yeah.
the cover of the album, right? The balance
Right.
of his swagger, his grounded content, and his heart.
Right.
He calls out people who hit their girlfriends on the song.
Mm-hmm.
It's very out of nowhere, but that's because it's bothering him.
Right.
Man.
I really did. So Denver Thuggets was probably my favorite song on it, but my second favorite song was Moses. I really loved, and I've never listened to Doofus or Sequence, but I thought the combination of all three of those guys was really, really great.
Now, I will correct you. You did listen to Sequence, because you did listen to I Feel Like Billy Hoyle.
Oh my gosh.
Remember Billy Hoyle?
When was that? That must have been was that early?
That was on the Andrew Pop 1967 episode.
Okay. You're okay. Now it's, oh my gosh, we've had so many shows, man. Okay.
Yeah, buddy. That's okay.
But you know what? Maybe I didn't recognize his voice because it sounded like he had like a cold or something.
I wrote that Sequence has a Marlboro Red voice.
Yeah.
Everyone on this song has a wild voice. Doof has a lisp. I love Doof. Just incredible character. Sequence's verse to me is very genuine.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very grounded dude. Yeah, Pitchfork kind of made fun of Sequence for being silly. And I was like, no, he's not really silly. He's not. This isn't riffraff. Like, he's just a dude with a smoker voice, but he's talking about real shit, like, and but it has that line, right? Like, what's this? Like, I may have killed some people, but so did Moses or something. Remember this?
Well, if he means by Passover,
I don't think
which
it was
is
like that, but he said like it was that the whole thing comes from. Were there any lines on here that just stuck out to you? And were like
the line you mentioned, the Moses line, was the one that kind of stuck out to me, because now that I think, I didn't make the connection, but I guess indirectly, like, in the Bible, Moses is the hero, but the 7 plagues were probably responsible for a lot. Not probably. The 7 plagues were responsible for a lot of Egyptian deaths. So it kind of flips, the narrative and the focus on, in terms of the Exodus story. So
yeah, man, he's got, I don't know. Teller has some real shit that really throws you.
yeah.
I think maybe the line that messed me up the most. There's a few in Amos. Amos has some lines in it. It's geez, call me Teller Brady, but I ain't fucking with 12. I love that line. I think that's amazing. But also, I had to write down same song, feeling like Killer Cam really did it all. I can eyeball a milligram.
Oh wow. Kilogram milligram. Yeah, I mean that's, and there are so many of those types of bars on the album.
Yup. I mean, my favorite hook of the project is probably Genesis. Um, it's so beautiful. It's like everything is connected. Everything is. You remember this? Um,
Right after phases, yeah.
his train of thought is so uniquely formatted. When he hits a hook this well, it's like an alien diamond. It's so great. Skunks is awesome on it. Uh,
I mean, it's fun. A lot of the, it seems like the first half of the album is biblically influenced. I mean, we Psalms, Prodigal Son, Moses, Genesis. I didn't even pick up on that the first time. That's interesting.
I'm telling you, dude, when we locked in, I was trying to do a decoded thing where we like went into the grotesque and the beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I pulled lines. We were going to talk about what the album meant. You can watch it, man. I'm wide eyed. There's so many levels to what he was writing that I didn't even catch. You know,
Right.
uh, that was a concept album. It was really like importantly done. Uh, this is looser. This is a looser album, but
Even
it's
WWJD. There's a lot of, right. I'm gonna have to listen to it again because there's something, like as you said, there's something going on here, that there's something that he's trying to communicate.
there's another line in WWJD. He says it's it's a different kind of violence when it's passion.
Ooh.
Amazing. So, and I had a comparison. I just think Teller accomplishes everything I want a rapper to do. He's funny, reflective, super swagger, life lessons, dexterous with a flow that changes. I said, it's like listening to a young Freddie Gibbs.
Hmm. In what way?
You know, when we covered the Freddie Gibbs project from years and years ago, the classic mixtape there,
Mhm.
and with Justice League and all that, and it was like, um, we talked about the flow was like a Corvette, right? You're just like, oh my god,
Yeah.
I can do anything, right?
Right.
Um, and that's the feeling of listening to Teller a lot of times
Mm.
because
Right. You just need a good driver,
yeah,
for,
no, go ahead.
for the, yeah, that makes sense. And I think, Freddie really took that next leap of musical consciousness in terms of in the mainstream with when he linked up with Alchemist.
Mhm.
And I think that Teller Banks and Ed Glorious have that. They have that chemistry. They're going to keep building on it.
Right, right. And like if Teller gets that shot and one of the big wig producers calls him, he'll kill that shit. Easy,
Yeah.
no question. Like, um, yeah, it's. I first heard him on an Iceberg Theory song,
Wow.
and I was sending an email interview to Iceberg, and I was like, "Who is this dude? Like, what is going on?" He killed this shit,
Yeah.
and Iceberg was like one of my favorite rappers in the world right now. Shit, you load up. So it's been great sense, but it is yeah, there's certain people who know it. My favorite song on here is Steel. It's easily my favorite beat. I told Flashes Clayton this. Um, I could do a full album on this high level gritted teeth bluster. The next collaboration album Ed needs to do is with Flash's Claim.
I bet there's something in the works.
It would be amazing.
Yeah.
And turntables, man. Acknowledging his anger, doubling down on his determination. It felt a little like Regrets on Reasonable Doubt, dude.
Yeah. And it's only a minute 50 long.
Whew. Oh,
Yeah.
I got more. So, yeah. What I thought was these images he gives you are coded in metaphor, right? So they are thinkers, right? Was on the east side, knee high to a street sign. Kept a stick with me because I ran into beehives. In case I ran into beehives.
Wow.
And the one that I'll remember that kind of is chilling is pardon me for my hollow-hearted philosophies.
Pardon me for my hollow-hearted philosophy. Oh, yeah. I mean, the alliteration is brilliant on that.
So I said this album doesn't seem to be about a lot, but it really is. It unfolds the more you listen. Yeah.
There's definitely layers to it.
Yeah.
Even the title, the part in the parcel.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to figure that one out as well. But he said everything he does, you can tell that everything he does is deliberate. There's nothing he says or does that's happenstance. That's done by chance.
So if I was going to hazard a guess do you want me to hazard a guess on the title?
Yeah.
All right. There's a lot of this is about like drug dealing and getting out of that, right? Trying to figure out your life. So the parcel is the package, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The part would be him. He's the part delivering the parcel, right? That's a dealer. The dealer is just the part of the system, right? That's one way to look at it. But there's so many religious titles on this and so much reference to religious stuff.
Right.
I think there's a religious element to that too, right? The package, the part that delivers the package, this life, the person who delivers us this life. There's probably a lot going on here.
Right. Let's see. Psalms. Moses delivered the 10 commandments. No. That was Moses? Yeah. That was Moses, right?
I don't know much about this stuff, but yeah, I think so.
Because Moses part of the Red Sea. Yes, Moses delivered the 10 commandments. Psalms. I think Psalms were songs written by a king. So that could also be right. Like God is. Wow. Okay. I'm gonna have to do more research into that, but I think you're onto something. You're right, because I think my theory is a lot of the things that he meant, a lot of the religious concepts or people that he mentioned are people who delivered God's word to, like they took the parcel and they delivered it to, God's people.
Right.
So I'm good. Wow.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of potential meaning in what this title is. It's very striking, right? And it fits what he does. Like I just think this is an amazing talent, and yeah, as many people as possible should listen to Teller Banks.
For sure.
And Glorious, for that matter. Oh no. Anyway, So let's go to recommendations. Recommendation corner. I'm gonna go with what have I been listening to? Been listening to a lot of weird shit lately. It's been fun. It's been fun. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna go with something weird. You want so two things. First, a great soundtrack. It's the Harder They Fall soundtrack.
Oh, wow.
Coffee is on it. Barrington Levy, Kid Cudi, Jay-Z,
Lauryn Hill,
Jay-Z, Jadakiss Conway.
Cudi.
Yeah, Lauryn Hill, Seal. You know.
Seal's on it. The singer Seal?
Yep.
Oh
No,
gosh.
actually,
All right, I'm in.
I knew you would be.
Love me some Seal.
So that one is really good. I really enjoy that. Ooh, that's what I was gonna do. My full-throated recommendation to the album Far In by Helado Negro.
Oh wow. Oh, I had heard that was coming out. I didn't realize it came out already.
Oh, Helado Negro is awesome. Just one of those completely unique people who is he's in between so many genres that he feels completely to himself to me.
Mm-hmm. It's a great way to put it.
There's folk stuff. There's like some kind of dance, almost dance EDM backing kind of stuff. I saw him live, and there were like lights going behind him that matched the kind of drum patterns. So it's kind of EDM drum patterns, but like it's all incredibly personal and beautiful. Yeah, it's great. So I would say definitely do that. Good time.
Okay.
Oof. Good stuff. Any big things?
No, man. No, not really. Not for in terms of my recommendations. No, not really. I do like I really like Succession right now, the show on HBO Max.
Yep.
But musically, no, I'm just going with the flow. You know, whatever's being released, I'll take a gander at it or listen to it. But nothing's really stuck with me, I would say.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
The Glory, I would say, yeah. My son has discovered the glory of John Morant, wants a John Morant jersey. Thank you, League Pass. So getting that done.
That's a player you can get behind, you know? Like if I had a son, I would no qualms with buying him a John Morant jersey.
Totally. No.
Some other players, there would be some hesitation. Absolutely.
Don't think that you wouldn't get him like a Udonis Haslem jersey or whatever? Or
oh no, Udonis. You know, if my son wanted a Udonis Haslem jersey, I would be all. I know I've done a great job so far. You know.
Hey, stay safe out there. Put A1 sauce on it. You know.